You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Since 1877, Australia and England have been battling out against each other in Test cricket. Over that time, many players have had the honour of captaining their country in an Ashes series or in an Ashes Test. There have been 42 captains to captain Australia in Ashes cricket and 55 captains to captain England in Ashes cricket. For the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast historical series, we are looking back at all the players who've captained Australia and England in Ashes cricket. In this historical series episode, we are looking back at the Ashes captains who captained Australia in the 1950s. Lindsay Hassett was a fine batsman whose career spanned from 1928 to 1953. He scored 3,073 runs at 46.56, with 10 centuries from 43 Test matches for Australia. His first-class numbers were excellent, scoring 16,890 runs at 58.24, with 54 centuries from 216 first-class matches. Hassett played spin with quick feet and speed with easy confidence. He captained the Australian Services 11 during the 1945 Victory Tests, and under Don Bradman's leadership became his deputy and eventual successor. He became Australia's 23rd Test captain, taken over from the great Don Bradman. His Ashes captaincy reign spanned from 1950 to 1953 and led Australia in 2 Ashes series. In that time, he led Australia to 1 Ashes series victory in 1950-51 and lost 1 series in 1953. In 10 tests, he won 4, lost 2 and drawn 4. His Ashes record saw him score 1,572 runs at 38.34 with 4 centuries, highest score of 137 in 24 Ashes tests between 1938 to 1953. Hassett was a part of the 1948 Invincibles side led by Don Bradman, and scored 310 runs at 44.28 with 1 century, highest score of 137 from 5 tests. Ian Johnson was a right-arm off-spinner who took 109 test wickets for Australia in a test career that spanned from 1946 to 1956. He had the honour of captaining Australia in 17 of his 45 test matches. His captaincy was a rocky journey. He became Australia's 25th test captain. His Ashes captaincy reign spanned from 1954 to 1956 and led Australia in 2 Ashes series. In that time, he led Australia to 2 successive Ashes series defeats in 1954, 55 and 1956. He became the first 20th century captain to lead Australia to defeats in successive Ashes series. In 9 tests, he won 2, lost 4 and drawn 3. His Ashes record saw him take 42 wickets at 37.85, with best settings figures of 6 for 42, best match figures of 8 for 134, and 1 5-wicket haul in 22 Ashes tests between 1946 to 1956. Johnson was a member of the 1948 Invincibles side and took 7 wickets at 61, with best settings figures of 3 for 72 and best match figures of 3 for 75, in 4 tests. Arthur Morris was a fine opening batsman for Australia, scoring 3,533 runs at 46.48, with 12 centuries, highest score of 206 in 46 test matches in a career that spanned from 1946 to 1955. He became Australia's 24th Test captain. He had the honour of captaining Australia in an Ashes Test during the second test of the 1954-55 Ashes series, when Captain Ian Johnson was unable to play due to fitness. Australia lost the test by 38 runs and the 1954-55 series 3-1 in the best of 5. Before this test, Morris captained Australia in a test against the West Indies in 1951-52. His Ashes record was just like his Test record, scoring 2,080 runs at 50.73 with 8 centuries, highest score of 206 in 24 Ashes tests between 1946 to 1955. He was a member of the 1948 Invincibles side and was Australia's best batsman for the tour, even outscoring the great Don Bradman. scoring 696 runs at 87, with 3 centuries, highest score of 196 in 5 tests. He scored 105 in the second test at Lord's. His 182 he scored at Headingley during the 4th test helped Australia to chase down 404, becoming the first team to chase 400 in the 4th innings of a run chase. He added 301 for the second wicket with Don Bradman, who scored 173 not out. In the final test at the Oval, he scored 196 in Australia's first innings, but the innings is often forgotten and overlooked because it was the same innings where Don Bradman got out for his famous duck. Richie Benaud was a fine all-round cricketer and one of Australian cricket's great captains. After his playing days, he became one of the game's great commentators. In a test career that spanned from 1952 to 1964, he scored 2,201 runs at 24.45 with 3 centuries, highest score of 122 as a batsman. He took over 248 wickets at 27.03, with best innings figures of 7 for 72, best match figures of 11 for 105, 16 5-wicket hauls, and 1 10-wicket haul, with his leg spin. He became the first player in Test cricket to complete the Test double of 200 wickets and 2,000 runs. During his captaincy, he never lost a series. Under his leadership, he encouraged an aggressive and proactive approach to the game, which he instilled in his team. He became Australia's 28th Test captain and took over the captaincy from Ian Craig on the eve of the 1958-59 Ashes series after Craig picked up hepatitis. His Ashes captaincy reign spanned from 1958 to 1963 and led Australia in 3 Ashes series. In that time, he led Australia to 2 Ashes series victories in 1958-59 and 1961, and a drawn series in 1962-63. In 14 tests, he won 6, lost 2 and drawn 6. His Ashes record was outstanding, taking 83 wickets at 31.81, with best innings figures of 6 for 70, best match figures of 9 for 173, 4 5-wicket hauls as a bowler. He scored 767 runs at 19.66 with 4 half-centuries, highest score of 97 as a batsman, in 27 Ashes tests between 1953 to 1963. Benaud provided many good performances in Ashes cricket, and his best performance came in the 1961 Ashes series in England. It was the 4th test at Old Trafford where Benaud bowled Australia to victory. Benaud took 6 for 70 and England were bowled out for 201, chasing 256 to win. He bowled around the wicket, which was something new in those days, but it worked to great effect. Australia won the test by 54 runs and regained the Ashes. It will go down as one of the best Ashes moments. In our next Historical Series episode, we are looking back at the Ashes captains who captained Australia in the 1960s.